Hey everybody, welcome to the Information War Report brought to you by the Media and Democracy Project. I am Brian. This is my esteemed guest, Milo. We are here today to talk to you about the information war that is being waged all around you, whether you know it or not. We are two co-founders of the Media and Democracy Project, and we meet monthly with our members to discuss a lot of the things that have been going on in terms of power, democracy, journalism, and media ownership in the last month. And there's been a lot happening, so let's get right into it. Milo, welcome.
Right on, Brian. It's great to do this with you and commiserate and reflect upon what's been going on around us.
Heck yeah. With MAD, we advocate and empower people to activate civically. So we talk all the time about supporting local and nonprofit journalism. Our goal is to advance media literacy and engage in media criticism, all towards the achievement of legislative and regulatory solutions to support better fact-based media in the public interest, which we are in desperate need of. One of the reasons we are in desperate need of that type of information and journalism is because we know in the election that just happened in 2024, there was a huge gulf between uninformed voters and informed voters. If you were able to answer basic questions about American societies, crime up, is crime down, what's going on at the border, you were more likely to vote for Harris. If you got those questions wrong, and if you engaged with news less, you were more likely to vote for Donald Trump. Every day, we all consume a combination of information, misinformation, disinformation, and we suffer when important stories are omitted from our news and our news feeds. And most Americans are being fed junk food media diets, which is a threat to our democracy, our society, and life on Earth, as we are acutely aware of as the wildfires rage in Los Angeles. And the Media and Democracy Project is all about trying to do something about that. So let's get into it. So social media remains a fertile ground for the information war. So in Romania, it was reported there was like this first round of elections and this guy came out of nowhere and won.
One of the things that we try and emphasize to folks who come to our meetings and are part of our community is we consume information and it has profound real life consequences. So disinformation isn't just something that happens and stays on social media. This is a really great microcosm of the power of social media to manipulate elections. This is a candidate that literally did not show up at a presidential debate in a sizable European country, did not have a significant grassroots campaign, ran a campaign exclusively on social media, and he won and was one of the top finishers in the first round of these elections. There's a second piece to this. It shows the power of social media. The second one is it is clear that he had some augmentation of his social media presence externally. And this is one of the problems with social media is malactors can amplify and strengthen campaigns. So the reason Romanian's Supreme Court ultimately decided to throw out this first round of elections is it was clear that there had been influence from external factors. Those, in this case, the external factors were Russian extensions of the Kremlin are presumed to have been the malactors to help amplify his social media campaign. But the reason I brought this up, Brian, and thanks for choosing this one, is it shows the power of social media to manipulate people in real-world consequences. Very tangible. If this guy didn't have access to social media, he would not have won an election. Bottom line. The idea is social media allows a minority to influence and even manipulate the majority. And that's why oligarchs have not only found money in this, but also power in this. And authoritarians around the world are grateful for social media. We saw it in the Philippines. We see it in India. We see it in the United States. It's a growing trend as the world trends more towards authoritarianism. Social media is a central machine by which authoritarians gain power, seize power, and maintain power.
Speaking of, you linked that last night to the Digital Services Act. Now, this is something that Europe has and that maybe we should have in America.
Absolutely. I think of this as basically a citizen's bill of rights, so to speak, over their digital privacy, over how their information is used and collected. So it's really a positive development for consumers and democracies. And it's certainly, as you said, Brian, something that we should have here.
See, this one This one I really wanted to focus on personally because I've been thinking about Christopher Rufo a lot. And what I try to express to people is that we are living in the world that has been created by reactionary billionaires over the last 60 years who have built hundreds of think tanks with the sole purpose of getting those think tanks to then interact with mainstream journalism and the right wing information ecosystem so that our information space, the news we get when we look at our phone in the morning and we see a digest of like what the news is, whether it's Apple News or we listen to the Daily or we go onto Twitter or we go onto Blue Sky to get our fix of news. This is a whole machine behind the scenes that has operated the entire time I've been alive, generating things to go into our public conversation so that they affect how we end up voting and thinking and making decisions. And so this guy, Christopher Rufo, he's the guy who brought you CRT. He's the guy who originated DEI. You can't escape this DEI stuff. Like the dominant media is this right-wing ecosystem nowadays, and we're inundated with this idea that DEI somehow caused and led to the spread of the fires in Los Angeles, which is an absurd and racist and bigoted idea. But this gives away the game because no decent person has a problem with sign language and with people who are watching breaking news press conferences from fire officials or police or government officials when some big disaster happens, and you see someone signing so that people who are deaf or hearing disabled can know what's going on. How could you possibly be upset about that? And you have Christopher Rufo here taking to the internet to say that we have to stop with this ridiculous sign language interpreters who turn serious press conferences into a farce. He's talking about basic language. He's talking about translating language to one set of people who need that service in order to understand what's going on. And it's just this extension that, to me, gives away the whole game. Like, you can be believing that DEI and CRT are big problems. You know, Milo and I will tell you that it's because billionaires are paying people like Chris to tell you that they're big problems. But you can still believe that if you want. But are you going to go all the way to the end of the road with this guy where he's talking about basic information services provided for people with disability and that we have to get rid of that? I don't know. It's just one big grievance machine, and I just wanted to riff on that for a minute.
One of the big things we talk about in the Media Democracy Project is messaging infrastructure. Owning Twitter is a perfect example of you own messaging infrastructure, you control the narrative. And Christopher Russo has a network that follows his actions on every social media platform. They are culture warrior warlords. They direct narratives. They create these issues. And as Brian was alluding to with regards to CRT, that was a manufactured issue, manufactured by the right. It only worked its way through the information space and the information war environment because social media amplified it. People engaged with it, gave it life. And then, like all good disinformation campaigns, it leaves and jumps out of the right-wing ecosystem and bleeds into corporate media and then gets amplified, and then it becomes a routine story and topic of conversation covered poorly in the New York Times. It kind of it escapes containment outside of the right-wing ecosystem. So this Rufo thing is really just running their same playbook on another civil right, so to speak. I think of access to information and signing as a somewhat of a civil right to be a part of our society, and that's something that municipalities should provide. But this is a bone to pick to kind of also distract. You know, we're not talking about Pete not qualified to be in charge of the military of the United States Hegseth today, but we have to talk about, you know, they've got a playbook and it works.
Okay. So now let's talk about heroes and zeros. We like to highlight people who are doing great stuff in the media and democracy space, and we like to also highlight the lowlights of people who are doing terrible stuff in the media and democracy space. And our January media and democracy hero is Ann Telnace and her editorial and political cartoonist colleagues. Political cartoonists provide powerful, succinct, accessible, necessary, and mimetic ways, lenses of viewing the world that we should all engage with and support. They're important because they cut through the BS, and the best of political cartoons precisely nail it on the head in a way that is more emotional, sort of makes you feel right away the stakes or the center, the heart of an issue. So this is the cartoon that Ann Telnaes resigned over.
If I could interrupt 1 quick second, Brian. So the hierarchy at the Washington Post is very important for all of this. So Jeff Bezos has bought this news organization. It's been his media property and just a plaything that he's not actively involved with until this past year. He chose Will Lewis from Rupert Murdoch's stable of Murdoch ethically challenged individuals. Make Jeff Bezos's cardinal sin was to actually hire a Murdoch Empire ethically challenged publisher. That happened last year. The second one is he's kept an editorial staff, has Will Lewis, of people who do not meet the moment and do not advocate for democracy, including the head of the editorial section, which is David Shipley. David Shipley is the one who spiked Ann Telnaes' cartoons, not Will Lewis. But as we know with how these organizations run, something called charismatic, what do we call it? Charismatic authority, that you're basically, in bottom line is people know what their boss wants and they do what their boss wants without their boss having to tell them what to do. They want to please their boss. That's a human nature thing. But Will Lewis has a boss, that's Jeff Bezos. David Shipley has a boss, that is Will Lewis, and ultimately Jeff Bezos. So the person who spiked this, did I make this like a Russian nesting doll of we don't have democracy as our prime directive? But I just wanted to be clear that if you're going to write a letter respectfully to the Washington Post, yes, it can be addressed to Jeff Bezos and Will Lewis and David Shipley.
So this is the cartoon. You've got Bezos, some other folks. I think that's supposed to be Patrick Shun-Song putting lipstick on. Better to kiss the derriere of Donald Trump, I guess. And then you have
Pucker up, Buttercup.
The stark red and yellow and black of Mickey Mouse, Disney. What did ABC Disney do?
Well, that was the one where George Stephanopoulos in a Sunday show referred to, exactly. And remember, at the time, everyone was saying, how can ABC News settle this? And we in the Media Democracy Project said, when discussing a news organization, describe it by the corporate leadership, and that will give you some insights into what's actually going on. So we refer to ABC News as Disney ABC News. And so this is getting succinctly to that point that this was Disney prostrating itself in front of a Donald Trump statue.
So that's right. Quote unquote, bending the knee. My perspective on that, though, is another way to reframe that is that they are not bending the knee so much as they are using their knees to race towards profit. These are corporations. These are businesses. These are business people. At the very top, these are people for whom no amount of money seems to be enough, and so let's do what's best for our business.
I see it, Brian, similarly with a slightly different angle. These powerful men are actually, their interests are aligned with Donald Trump. This isn't so much just purely economic as culturally, as well as agenda-wise. And there's a hot off the presses update, I believe, if I can, which is that attending the inauguration will be sitting together, I believe, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon Musk. No, I kid you not. It's not obeying in advance when you're talking about billionaire to billionaire alignment and collaboration. It's really more collaboration and networking rather than really obeying in advance. We talked earlier about the Digital Surveillance, the Digital Services Act in the EU.
Yeah.
I mentioned it on the Monday call that there is a long game in here, that the only threat right now, credible threat, to the power of big tech in the United States is actually the Digital Services Act in Europe. Europe is a significant market. It is a prestigious market. And right now, the Digital Services Act does pose a threat to, not coincidentally, pretty much everyone on that screen. Sam Altman, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Pinchai, all of these American companies are soon going to have to be held accountable in the EU. And some European countries, to use an appropriate term, are not playing. They want better protection for their citizenry and the digital health of their countries. And something very disturbing came out in the last several months that Vice President-elect Vance intimated that the U.S. contributing to participate in NATO funding would be dependent on whether the European countries unfairly limited the power of some American tech companies. So that's like a hijacking of American foreign policy, credibility, for business interests. Like, that's the stuff that used to happen in back rooms, but now is overtly being whispered about. So I just wanted to toss that out there, linking that Digital Services Act, Europe, what these oligarchs may be looking for, and how that Digital Services Act may be something we're all hearing more about in the next couple of months.
Well, I sure hope we hear a lot more about it, because here comes another Ann Telnay's cartoon from a series that she did. And I want to highlight what she highlighted in the red box, which is editorial cartoonists are democracy's canary in a coal mine. We don't have too many canaries in the coal mine when it comes to our mainstream press. And so when we see people whose work is being rejected because of this collusion amongst powerful interests, powerful corrupt interests working together to further their agendas, it's very scary.
If you missed this political moment, cartoonists literally around the world made a little campaign saying "Stand with Anne." If you are on socials, look up the hashtag Stand With Anne, and you can see some of these, but Brian's picked a couple of the great ones from other editorial cartoonists who rallied around the subject matter of Anne in the Washington Post.
This one is a little deeper. It's the Charlie Hebdo organization, which was violently attacked. Their journalists, some were murdered because they portrayed a cartoon of Muhammad many years ago. And so they are 10 years ago, I guess. So they are, echoing that with this very intense cartoon.
What I find extra powerful in that one, Brian, sorry, is that also highlights that it's Shipley and Bezos. And it highlights this idea that these institutions are going to depend, as there's more and more pressure put on news organizations, that there are going to be individuals who are going to need to take stands and advocate for truth and democracy. And David Shipley whiffed in a big way. Missing the moment, he compromised the credibility of the Washington Post. This is not about the cartoon. This is about the editorial process and meeting the moment in democracy under assault. And this is, for me, a personally extra powerful cartoon, that it highlights that there are editors and the people behind the scenes that are never held accountable institutionally that are going to have to rise to the moment as we go ahead.
Yes. All right, here we go. And this one's pretty fun. And actually, this is actually on the right. It's a depiction of the inauguration. That was our single mad hero. Let's get into some mad zeros. And we're going to get into the biggest zero of them all. Look, everyone's doing the best they can with what they have. Some people just don't have very much empathy. Perennial zero, Elon Musk, is really just the world's most dangerous person. I'm going to quickly go through these. Milo, on the left, you have a tweet from Elon Musk that says, "Defund Sierra Club." Musk did this tweet as a quote tweet of someone else talking about how the Sierra Club was keeping the state, city, local governments from getting rid of eucalyptus trees. That was disinformation. This was referring to San Francisco, by the way, not Los Angeles. But the Sierra Club in San Francisco believed that the measures in place to cut down eucalyptus trees were not going far enough, because the Sierra Club recognized that eucalyptus trees, especially because of the oils they contain, are a wildfire hazard, and they wanted them to cut down even more trees. So this is a total lie, and as the Sierra Club points out in this piece of messaging from them, an attempt to distract from the climate crisis. So much of what we're seeing in the right-wing messaging about the LA fires is to distract from the climate crisis. Then on the right, he is inserting himself all over the world in politics. Elon Musk is now this just sort of rogue figure destroying democracies around the world. He is lying and spreading disinformation about the prime minister, and you can go and look at the fact checks. It's wrong. It's disinformation. Here he's saying, again, we talk about how people in power who want to do corrupt things tell you that journalism is your enemy. Elon Musk is telling people on Twitter The Guardian is a nest of pedophile apologists because they are pushing back against his disinformation. Delete this Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. There's this whole racket right now. You may have heard about Joe Rogan's guest, Mark Andreessen, another billionaire, going onto his show and saying that the CFPB is debanking people. These are people who want to start companies that defraud Americans, and the CFPB is, which is it's not for us. It works for us, and the CFPB is saying, "Hey, no, you can't do that." Specifically with Mark Andreessen, he founded a company called LendUp. It was a fraudulent company that was lying to its investors and the people who gave it their money. And so they were shut down. They were not debanked. We want regulation of predatory financial companies in this country. We want that. I don't care what area of the political spectrum you inhabit. But he and the other oligarchs are out there saying, delete the CFPB. And then look at this. Look at this sign from the AFD. I guess they're like, let's do a Heil Hitler, but we can do it as like two parents putting a house over the children. It says, we protect or we shield your kids. I mean, it's an obvious Sieg Heil. No one would ever okay this picture unless they were okay with this picture. So you have people all over the American internet denying that Elon Musk is endorsing the neo-Nazi party or that AFD is even a neo-Nazi party in the first place. Excuse me, look at their sign. Elon Musk pens a German newspaper opinion piece in support for the far-right AFD party. So Elon Musk is out here supporting Nazis. And then here we are with our other zero of the month, Zuckerberg. I don't even want to talk about this guy.
Brian, this guy's, he announced that he was making all these initiatives that are undermining the quality of the information space of people who are on meta platforms. He did so wearing a $900,000 watch. You can't just slap on like a little $20 Casio and then, put the Petite Philippe away or whatever it is and put it away, at least for the rollout. That's how unrestrained they are from doing what they're doing.
I know. They're getting rid of fact-checking because fact-checking has become too political. Now, if you consult surveys and studies, the reality is that people who identify as being on the right spread more mis and disinformation knowingly, unknowingly, on social media. I'm not here to judge those people. Milo's not here to judge those people. Just the straight up facts are that for whatever reasons, people who align themselves with the political right in this country spread more things that are untrue that then necessitate fact checks on social media. And so the idea that it's too political is really an idea that truth has become too political, that facts and reliable information has become too political. So I really want people to understand where we're at when the CEO, owner, billionaire of our most entrenched social media company is saying that truth has become too political. That is a very dangerous place for us all to be. Now, legacy media coverage is corrupted by narratives that serve power, New York Times edition. So one thing we talk about all the time in the Media and Democracy Project is that it's not just the known disinformers that are a problem for our democracy, for people being informed. It is also the messages and narratives and frames that are delivered to us by the mainstream media. Let's just take a quick look at some of these headlines, which of course you should always read the articles and not just look at the headlines. But for the purposes of what we're doing here, we're just going to look at the headlines. So if you had a country where a president had attempted a coup after losing an election, would you sort of casually refer to that in a headline that says how Trump flipped the script and made Jan 6 an asset? I mean, people died on this day. Capitol Police were being bludgeoned with hockey sticks and fire hydrants and all manner of weaponry. How Trump flipped the script and made Jan 6 an asset, transforming crime scene into platform for conspiracy theories and grievances. you may look at this through a lens of like, oh, yeah, they're saying that it was like conspiracy theories and grievances. There are so many other ways to write this headline than how Trump flipped the script and made Jan 6 an asset. You could say Donald Trump lying about January 6th spreads conspiracy theories. You could say Trump, aided by right-wing media, shifts narrative on Jan 6, whatever. But how Trump flipped the script, it's crass, New York Times. Trump echoes.
Sorry, just that was A1 above the fold. If you were also looking for next level, how we think about these problems.
Interesting.
So it wasn't just on the 14th page, the A section. This was front page caliber exposition.
And lots of people want to go, that's not so bad. Any of these examples in isolation, okay, maybe I could see it. But there's more than one slide here, folks. Just get prepared. Trump echoes age of empire. His bravado unsettles the world's diplomats. Now, okay, the title above this slide says narratives that serve power. Why would you talk about someone who is threatening countries around the world, sometimes allies, threatening Greenland, which is part of Denmark, which is a NATO ally? Trump echoes age of empire. I mean, it's like you're writing about a film that you enjoyed at the theater. His bravado unsettles the world's diplomats. Think about at home other ways. Take out your thesaurus and look up, antonyms of all of these words, and you could arrive at a better headline. Jeremy Peters here says to get on the wrong side of transgender activists is often to endure their unsparing criticism. Now, look, I'm going to pop off here for a second. Transgender activists are actually human beings who are being attacked for the reality of their humanity. So you may want to call them an activist, but I want to reframe this sentence and say to get on the wrong side of people that you are attacking is often a way to inspire criticism from the people that you are attacking.
Well done. Bravo.
This is we're going off the cuff here.
Yeah.
Why does Trump want the Panama Canal? Here's what to know. Trump also says he wants Greenland. Here's why. These frames aren't Trump is threatening expansion in a way you might write about other expansionist authoritarian behavior throughout history of the last 100 years. It's treated like a going to Governor's Island this weekend. Here's 10 stores you might want to visit for some sweet snacks. It's just so bizarre. And then Thomas Friedman, Trump's path to a Nobel Peace Prize. That I just surprised myself. I can't believe that that's the headline.
It's actually a thing. I had to double check.
How much would buying Greenland cost? In the deal book.
That's where
in the deal book.
That's where I get my best deals. That's how I learn about my deals.
Hey, let's present this to you in the deal book as something that like you might be a part of your life in a financial sense.
Maybe you and I'm going to go halvesies. Maybe we can see if we can get in on the deal. I mean, it's like
right. How much would buying Greenland cost? Are there shares?
Yeah. Like, can we? I mean, like, let's put it together, like a potluck and chip in, and everybody see what we get.
Well, don't call Kennedy a vaccine skeptic. Call him a dangerous person who shouldn't have a public health position. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It says call him what he is, a cynic. Right. He's just a guy who sees stuff and he asks questions.
No, it's.
Oh, Canada, come join us. So again, I want to go back to just what I said earlier, which was in isolation, maybe these are something you could argue against. But this is all from the last, this is January 11th. All these headlines are from the last 3 weeks or so. If I were a young Canadian, especially one outside the Laurentian heartland, I think I would feel this vision's pull. And yes, even if I were a young left-leaning anti-Trump Canadian, because what better way to serve those causes than to actually pull Washington leftward, to add your votes to the coalition that just failed to defeat Trump. That is the most childlike appraisal of, first of all, what it means to affect change as someone who wants to petition a government.
I just can't.
But it's just,
I'm
this is
laughing out
like
of
nonsense.
disquiet. I'm not.
This is the New York Times. Take your New York Times money subscription and consider strongly investing it in some high quality local journalism that serves the public interest. So we also like to talk about the language of our times as part of the information war report. We want to talk about media literacy. We should all be tuned into and monitor the novel language of our times. What words are wiggly and could use more precision? When we see our media latch on to a term as the term of art for describing some zeitgeist issue or phenomenon, is it something that is really accurate, like it was a mob and it was a riot, or was it an insurrection and a coup? How are they choosing to describe reality back to us such that they become the words we use to talk with each other, and they become the frames we have in our brains about what's going on in the world? And many of them, you point out, are a double-edged sword because they highlight concerns and they do sound alarms, but they also, in that wiggly way that you refer to, normalize and whitewash the acceptance of anti-democratic attacks on democracy. So this month's is Doge. Doge is not what the media is credulously, in many instances, treating it as, right? It is not a department of government efficiency. Just to point out about Doge, I think the one on the left is really spot on. So, you got this Don Moynihan character saying, I think journalists, policymakers, and good government types are struggling to understand Doge because their mental model is that it is a government reform commission. They somehow take them at their word and say, oh, this is a government reform commission operating like other government reform commissions. But he's spot on when he says it might be better to start thinking about it as a hostile takeover of government by oligarchs. We can go back to when we just talked about the CFPB. The CFPB is in the sights of Doge. Why? Because people want to privatize government function and hand it off to their buddies so that they can be enriched, and they can enrich themselves by removing regulatory agencies from having any say on the way that they do business. That's what's happening with Doge. I'm not saying that if you see someone credulously engage with Doge as a legitimate effort, that you should completely write off that organization that purports to inform you, but you should look at everything with some skepticism, and especially if they're going to treat something that should not be treated seriously as something that's treated seriously.
And don't forget, tying things together, it is being directed by the man who thinks the AfD is a forward-thinking party and is the future of Germany.
Thank you. Yes.
That's called, Brian, the one of those words. We've been together for long, and we've learned from each other, and we inspire each other. But like your word, 3 years ago, you baked into my brain, is one of the big things that news orgs leave out is context.
Context.
Yes, that's like Brian's magic word of of what news orgs are supposed to be doing for you and for us, that unfortunately, by and large, is not being done.
It's straight up weird that any reporting on Elon Musk would leave out his daily racism, bigotry, misogyny. Okay, we're going to play some games. At Media and Democracy Project, we like to talk about what is being omitted from our news, or what is being omitted from front pages and what is not being given the emphasis that it requires. Maybe sometimes on the front page we'll have information about what a candidate's partner is wearing and their fashion choices, and that ends up on a front page. Meanwhile, every single day in America, there are majorly pressing issues that impact people's life, their health, their wealth, and they're not being featured by our mainstream corporate news organizations. So we like to play a little thing in our meetings, which you should come to, called Should Be Front Page But Isn't. They are Biden's net neutrality rules are overturned. How much coverage did you see of that in the last month? Do you even know why that's important or not? Net neutrality being overturned is going to affect your life because it's going to affect your ability to access the internet, and it's a very important issue that you should know more about. B, Ohio House passes 11th hour bill forcing teachers and counselors to out LGBTQ plus students, and that's now heading to the governor. Did you see that extremely anti-democratic piece of legislation reported in the news sources that you consult? Elon Musk's new X profile completes his evolution as far-right troll. Elon Musk changed his handle on X to like Kekistocracy King or something like that. Kek is a, yes?
No, I was going to say Kekis Maximus.
Kekis Maximus. Kek is a 4chan meme that is about white supremacy. Did you see that covered widely? Do you even know the context of that? When you see Pepe the Frog, do you even know that that's a horrific white supremacist meme?
This is
do you
the
even know
richest,
what Pepe the Frog is?
Right, the richest man in the world. I mean, Brian, you talked about the AFD, 1 degree removed, the Nazi salute. You can't help but think that he's endorsing white supremacy. Here he changed the avatar of his account on his personal social media platform to be a racist meme. The richest man in the world did that. Did anyone hear that?
D, temperatures rising. NASA confirms 2024 warmest year on record. In all the coverage of the LA fires, how much of it was devoted to the realities of climate change? Temperatures rising, hottest year on record. Did you hear about it? DOJ releases its Tulsa race massacre report over 100 years after initial review. I certainly did not hear anything about this report. This was a massacre of black people in Tulsa, and the DOJ reviewed it. And did you hear about it? Our Department of Justice released a report for the public. They serve the public.
This is one of the most abhorrent moments in American history. One of the major findings in the DOJ report is that this wasn't just some wild rampage that was kind of random attacks on black people. It was systematized. White people were deputized, and in being deputized, they were absolved of criminality for killing black people. And one of the things that Donald Trump has mentioned is deputizing local sheriffs. And when it comes to his plan to round up undocumented folks, he has already said that he will indemnify them against crimes that they commit. And remember that day of rage and the purge, so to speak. And the reason this resonated with me, besides it being something, this particular piece that Americans need to be better informed about, is this concept of deputizing people to kill people and then indemnifying them from the harm that they commit is abhorrent. So I saw kind of a shadow of things to come in this, besides it being important historical.
Okay. F, Louisiana forbids public health workers from promoting COVID, flu, and monkeypox shots. Go off, Milo.
I can't. I mean, this is telling public health agencies they cannot do public health. I mean, this should be a front page story. This is a problem for the residents of Louisiana. This is a problem for America. These are transmissible diseases. We know that there needs to be surveillance. There needs to be, I mean, the human consequence of this, the public health consequence of this, the burden on the public health system in Louisiana. This is anti-public health. I mean, this is basically promoting sickness legislatively. This one, I have trouble stomaching. I mean, there's a lot to go with, but in terms of willfully making it illegal to give people information to keep them healthy is beyond comprehension.
This is really an exercise in thinking about what news you get and what news you don't. And if you didn't get any of this news, maybe it's time to start thinking about your sources of news and looking for ones that do cover things like this. We'd love to find out what you think about this. Go to mediaanddemocracyproject.org, sign up for a meeting, check out our blog. On our blog, you can find how you can vote for this, and you can also find the link to the slides that I'm about to show you. We've got a little quote here from Walter Cronkite. Freedom of the press is not just important to democracy, it is democracy. And boy, is that guy right. So, group action for yesterday, January 13th, we all sent a letter to thank Ann Talnase for her work and for her voice and for speaking up. And that was a great, nice thing that we did. The Contrarian is a news outlet that has just been announced. It is a bunch of people who have written from a pro-democracy perspective in the journalism and punditry space over the last several years. You can see a list of some of the people who have signed on there. It is important in this time when journalism is under attack and will be even further under attack moving forward, that there are voices that people know about, that they've seen in other outlets, who are standing up for democracy and standing up for truth, context, and transparency in the information that we all receive. So if you're looking for a pro-democracy source of discussion about what's going on in our world, we suggest that you check it out.
I think that's really important. I think people are looking for islands and oases of quality information that isn't rife with conflicts of interest or hidden agendas. And these folks, just by name and their resumes of late, have really been more on the pro-democracy angle. So we're going to be monitoring this. But one of our biggest concerns about corporate media is it is not what we call pro-democracy and advocating for democracy, whereas these folks are. So wanted to bring this to your attention.
Right on. And another action you can take is just a simple rhetorical action. And what we want you to do is change the way you think and talk about your media. So if you are aware, because I'm not expecting you all to memorize this list, but when you think about ABC News, call it Disney ABC News. When you think about CNN, call it Time Warner CNN. Call it Murdoch's Fox, Zuckerberg's Meta and Facebook and Instagram, Musk's Twitter, right? The idea here is that you can't separate ownership from journalism. You can't separate ownership from discourse, from social media. You have to constantly be aware that we live in an information space where there are agendas, and those agendas affect how we end up thinking about the world. And so if we start to go one step above in the food chain and think about, oh, actually this information that I'm getting is coming from this corporation. It's coming from this billionaire. And what are their motivations? What are their agendas? How do they charismatically influence their newsrooms? Also in 2025, we want you to defend press freedom. We want you to go to mediaanddemocracyproject.org and click on our blog, read one of our most recent pieces, which is about how you can defend press freedom. We want you to thank a journalist at least once in January. And we want you to, in that press freedom vein, be engaged as a news consumer and an ally to the press. Again, the watchword for 2025 is the press is under attack. That's a watch phrase, but the watch phrase for 2025 is the press is under attack. So in our meeting, we all had everyone sign up for Ann Telnase's blog. We think she's a great voice, speaking up as a canary in the coal mine against anti-democratic behavior. And we want you to do that yourself. We want you to read our Substack. We want you to donate to one of those orgs that's listed in that article that I just talked about. And we want you to stay alert for attacks on press freedom. We also want you to share them with us. So you can always email info@mediaanddemocracyproject.org. Once again, that's info@mediaanddemocracyproject.org. And you can tell us what you're thinking, what you're seeing. You can share with us in community ways that you're interpreting the information ecosystem and what you think we should be thinking about. In ways of being an engaged news consumer, you can think about the climate emergency and how that is covered. Again, when you're watching coverage of the LA fires, is it just the sensationalism of the fires and the very tragic stories of the people who have lost their homes and their lives? Or is it also an adult conversation about the world we live in that is getting hotter every single year? The world is under attack from fossil fuel pollution. It is real. How are you seeing that covered in your news media sources? If you see poor coverage, write your local newspaper and your TV affiliate. Or if you see something covered somewhere else, like ProPublica's amazing new piece that has amazing visuals that really contextualize what's happening in America in terms of climate migration and people moving and areas of the country where it's getting drier. Really, you should check that out. And lastly, find good local news outlets. We at the Media and Democracy Project have put together a searchable 50-state plus territories directory through which you can find journalism in the public interest, journalism that serves your community, journalism that reports on your state government, where decisions are being made that are going to impact your life as a citizen, civically engage, go out there, support amazing journalism that saves you money by exposing corruption, journalism that keeps you safe, journalism that uplifts your neighbors and defends democracy. We definitely want you to do that. Milo, do you have anything that you want to say about those actions?
Don't feel hopeless. Find community, join us, form a group of your own, and those actions are absolutely a great place to jump right in and start off 2025.
And we definitely want you to engage with us on social media. We are on Blue Sky. We definitely want you to go to our website, mediaanddemocracyproject.org, and sign up for a meeting. Come to the next one of these meetings. It is a good time in community with people who care about these issues and who are thinking and working towards solutions and ways that we can all have a better informed citizenry and how we can all come together to uplift journalism and democracy. So we're just going to leave you with this image of a stamp, 3-cent stamp. Our republic and its press will rise or fall together. In a world where you are not seeing content like this at all, you are not seeing very many people standing up to forcefully tell you that democracy is on the line, that journalism is a bedrock of democracy, and that those two things are intertwined, under attack. You need to understand that our republic and its press will rise or fall together. So defend democracy, defend journalism, uplift democracy, uplift journalism. We hope that you engage with us. We hope to see you at the next meeting. Thank you.